Hey, welcome to the next conversation about temples, temple culture. I really liked the word that you just said. And yeah, this conversation will be with Joy Thunder, a very dear friend whom I experienced, had the pleasure to experience in a residency in Samudraki some years ago, 2 years ago, I think. And yeah, it still makes me warm and kind of feeling open and tender when I think about this time. Welcome, Joy. Nice
Thank
to
you.
have you here.
Yeah, such a pleasure to have that reminder as you open a conversation about temple culture and being like, oh, what a privilege it was to live that together.
Mm. Yeah, and I wonder if you want to take a bit of time to e express where you come from around like your experience of what is a temple and your entry point maybe and your yeah where you came from and where you are now um, within the field of temple experiences.
Um, hmm, I guess I followed the thread of the rituals I was most excited about. I started out as an atheist, born and bred by other atheists in what I feel like is the least spiritual place to be born in, which is France. And I started making tattoos on my travels, and I was creating ritualistic tattoos without knowing that that's what I was doing because I had never really seen rituals before. And as I got into contact in a peripheral sort of way with shamanism, I little by little realized that was precisely what I had been doing for years. And I moved to Glastonbury in England to connect with my British roots. I'm half British and I had never lived there before. And there I was spending a lot of time with friends who would talk about uh, remembering the temples. And that place in itself is already a very fascinating and charged spiritual hotspot of the earth. But um, there was something in the talking about it as if it's an impossible thing that cannot exist today that was quite present there, talking with this melancholy, not this, and we're doing this now kind of thing that I could feel there. And because Glastonbury was composed 80% of females, especially over the age of 50, because people are working with beautiful feminine energy there. I always had a sense that I couldn't devote myself to a path of shamanism that didn't include sexuality in a very active way. So I had opportunities and invitations to really melt into one of these paths, but it never felt mine. And yeah, when I was there, I literally Googled um, sexual, spiritual, shamanic something.
No, nice one.
Because I was hearing about tantra, but again it felt too distant at the time. It was kind of like a bunch of gods from a place I've never heard of, that I've never been to. It's, you know, I had just come back from South America where there's enough cultural appropriation going on every day that I didn't want to participate in that at all.
Mm.
And there I discovered ISTA as a school and joined that to be part of their courses. And then I discovered the temple trainings, which is a longer version, a mystery school that takes 6 weeks at a time to delve into community and the soul life and sexuality all together. And there was a sense of, as soon as someone told me about the tempo training, this relief of, oh God, here you are. I've been looking for you. Here you are. Oh, okay. I found you, you know, and
Oh.
spent about 3-4 years of my life fully immersed in these realms. Yeah, and feel very privileged to have been able to do that. So that's where the background comes from. Yeah.
What is one of the dearest revelations that came to you over those 5 years of contemplating or like deeply experiencing this realm or reality?
I think it's got to do with synergy. When I started to be part of the facilitation teams as an assistant and more recently as a facilitator, when I was part of the team of a tempo training, I took part in one where we were only about 7. So every hour we didn't know what we were going to do the following hour. It was just in the moment. And so I really accessed this grace of flowing like a school of fish and just going like, oh, this is happening. And I had never been part of a culture that is constantly in a state of flow together. That is not just like a punctual thing, and it was a tiny little like 3-hour thing, and then everyone goes home. But to be able to continually bathe in that state of bliss of being carried, and not just me, because I've had, luckily for me, plenty of opportunities of feeling carried by life constantly for months, for years, but everyone around me, all of us, in this kind of obsessive listening to the empty center of like, and where are we going now? And then, so yeah, it's a tapping into tribal flow that I had never touched before and have never touched since in as significant a way. And I mean, I've touched it in the time that we spent together living in a house with 10 dear friends, and yeah, a feeling of being really, really blessed because we are living through the hearts of all the people here, not just your heart or my heart, of really becoming a mycelial network in a way that defies explaining. And
it's like I really love to listen to you. It's like the way how your voice sounds, or it feels like your voice kind of is coming from I don't want to say from a very different place, because it feels so much like you're talking about life, and kind of your voice is vibrating with, I'm talking about life now in somehow a very simple way, but in another way, this is what we can experience. Like it's kind of a like as if you would be talking from like somebody like aliens who are coming to the earth and say like, okay, this is how life actually could work here, and this is how actually life works. But we have to say that to people who are already living here and somehow don't get it. So somehow it's like your voice is coming from a place that is somewhere very different, but in another way it's just like talking about simple life. And I really love that.
yeah, it's kind of a constant exploration for me, being a very solitary creature by nature, and then constantly falling into the open bliss of community, and then failing to find it because I've been traveling a lot and I'm not always very good at normal socializing. And so it's kind of eternally fresh to me, this state of oh my God, we can meet like this, and we can meet like this every day. We just have to choose it, and then yeah, I just feel strongly this echo of when I was living in England and people were talking about it as a thing that cannot be. Somehow there was a seed of that. And I remember going to a talk by someone who had been part of the massive Osho community in the United States. And this was a man who came and shared about his experience, but it was the same thing. He had a defeated light in his eyes of it was paradise, and then of course it stopped, and that is far buried in the past and it cannot be again. And yeah, something so tender in touching paradise and then it leaving, but then it coming back and staying open to the inevitability of it coming back. Yeah.
Have you experienced places like this outside of the temple culture, or is that still like a thing that kind of happens for you around these realms or around this culture somehow?
Not really, but I haven't been immersed anywhere the way I have been immersed in this culture before. I was a solo traveler for 10 years of my life. And so I haven't had the chance to bathe in different group organisms and feel it. And inside of me, there's a sense of I feel like I want to meet people when we're totally naked. Otherwise, I get impatient and I get like, oh, it's so hard to connect, and I have all kind of bullshit stories in my mind around like the environment is not right for me to be able to really, because if we're not talking about like the real things that make us laugh and cry and that really shape our days, if we're going like blah 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 superficial, then some parts of me feel very bored and impatient and like, I want to talk about why we live or die mostly. Why we choose to stay on this planet every day and the wonderful beauty and the aching loss. And that's kind of where I prefer to meet each other in this kind of, yeah, it's the very Scorpio side of me. It's like everything. So
I guess it's also the very human side of you. I don't, yeah. I see that like Scorpios, they are always holding point for this in some, most of the times, but at the end, it's a very human experience that we actually want to connect on the level that is true and where we feel most alive.
Yeah.
At the moment, you're doing storytelling temples, right?
Yeah, I've been doing this for a little while. It was kind of exploring, basically coming out of a culture that's very centered around the non-dual, which is a bit too much of a niche term for me. It's kind of like, going into the tantric practices of like nothing is black or white and allowing what's in the middle between these things to be guiding. And I kept thinking, okay, so people can go to these very specific places for a specific amount of time and bathe in this culture, but how do we bring it like in a really easy way, more in the day to day? How do we build our temples in the city? And it made me want to work with trickster energy, because of the element of like tricksters kind of jumpstarts through like quantic leaps, and they don't belong to any rules and they don't belong to any cults. They're just kind of on the periphery, shaping things in ways that few others can and do. And so I started studying Baba Yaga as a doorway into that, because she was the closest trickster that I could find to European soil. The others that I met, they were like African and I didn't want to like go and dig places that don't feel mine. Because I met them in Brazil and they were part of my life there. But coming back here, I needed something, people who knew that names. And so Baba Yaga is very fascinating to me because she's very strongly in both of the poles. She's like a very benevolent goddess figure who is going to help with all of her magical powers, and she's also a child kidnapper, a devourer, a murderer, an ogre figure at the same time. And so for me, that was a good way to access the concept of non-dual in a way that people can go without needing much blah blah blah. Being like, it's a story. We all have heard stories, and if we tap into a culture through storytelling, it's also like putting our roots deeper down in something that has quite a lot of surface. Like there are a lot of stories about Baba Yaga. And if we were just going to do, oh, hi, let's do a water ritual or an energy of the void ritual, it feels rootless. It feels like it's not like solidly since millennia steeped into other things. And then we tap into that very deep well. And so that's why I kind of went into storytelling, because it felt like that way we can keep touching something that has been like implanted deep in the human psyche since millennia, and we can take the resource and the knowing of that. So I was translating experiences from the folk tales into rituals so that we went through the experiences of the stories, like being chased by a murderer who wants to kill you, like giving up on life and crying ourselves to sleep, or like getting married to a random animal, because that happens all the time in fairy tales from Russia. You just meet a bear and they're like, oh yeah, you have to marry the bear. And it's like, what? So I started creating rituals where we could all live these moments together. Yeah.
I'm very curious what happened with the people or with you when you were like journeying as a group through those portals.
Well, it feels like everything that I've ever done is just taking me deeper into love. And the wedding rituals in particular, I call them blind wedding, because you're blindfolded when you arrive and you suddenly get tied to someone by the hand and you can't see them, but suddenly you're married for like an hour or three. And so
No.
you go through a dance journey where you're dancing with someone for 3 hours and you do like a little marriage ceremony and stuff. And what I discovered there was what I've discovered in the mystery schools as well, which is very simply that our love for each other is inevitable if we have enough time. It's really just give it enough time, and every single couple of blindfolded people who are all like, oh my god, who is this? Will be, in a bliss puddle on the floor by the end of 3 hours. There's something so that just longs to surrender into opening to more love and opening to each other. And it's kind of the lesson I keep learning every day, the inevitability of love triumphant if we give it enough time, if we give it enough of our attention.
Yeah, that struck very into my heart when you said it. The time feels very important.
Yeah.
I heard one time this phrase, a temple is like a pilgrimage back to love. And it feels very much like you have like, as if you're talking about this as well now, and I really love that place.
Yeah.
How is mystery and love connected? Oh, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking how I saw a really great quote that was about martial arts. Because at some point I was heavily into martial arts, and it said something like, The dojo is a place where your opponent is here in service to you. Your opponent is your ally to point out all the places where you can still grow. And I'm not going to misquote it because I cannot remember it now, but at some point I used this on my website to be like, okay, take this text and replace the word dojo with temple. And you got it all. It's all there, you know, something around the eternal mirror of the situation that, you know, we take you into pain and confrontation, but it's all just with yourself. Eternally, it's all just with yourself. So it feels like that as well with your quote. Because I feel like maybe here in Berlin, the word temple is very closely linked with like sexual temples, which is beautiful because there's not enough of that in the world. But I understand temple as a very broad space where everything is welcome, but the focus is not necessarily on sexuality. And so there's something around like also inviting in there pain and confrontation and, you know, rage and conflict, and these things will come inevitably if you invite sexuality anyway, but something about saying that all the colors are welcome in the temple. That's, to me, the definition of temple. It's a space of welcoming life. All of it. All the colors, all the forms, all the resistance, all the ecstasy. Yeah.
It's so interesting that I've had now this fourth interview. I think it's the fourth, and everybody's kind of going there. All the people who are actually inviting for temple or facilitating temple, they say this is a place to look at yourself and kind of move the things that you don't normally want to move, kind of. And it's very interesting to have that in a way that this is a very normal perspective, and in another way it's kind of not, still like that. It's a place where we kind of have to really talk about and really invite people into, oh yeah, you can look at your pain also in a different way, and it's a doorway to making you more human and to making you more whole, and the temple as a mirror to kind of point out where you can grow and where you can be more full you. Yeah, it's a very interesting experience that I'm just having now, where yeah, really just those two things, where when I would like talk to participants sometimes about this, there is more a constriction or more a thing of like, really, do we need to go there, or kind of, but temple is just something like that. And then on the other perspective, the same story with everybody that I'm having this conversation.
Yeah, and I feel
This is
like
something that crossed my mind.
yeah, like I was just hosting some rituals at a festival recently, and there's one of these rituals I was just telling you about from the Baba Yaga lineage that is called the monster chase. And because in every story at some point you're going to get pursued by Baba Yaga who's trying to kill you and eat you. And so the ritual that I do with this is that we have everyone gets into pairs, and one of these people is the monster and one of these people is the main character of the story. And the monster chases the main character, sometimes slowly and sometimes fast, but it's like very high pressure. Okay, we're going to go into what are you running away from? Actually. So let the monster who's like breathing down your neck become physically that thing you've been running away from. So it's like it's going into perpetrator archetype, and it's not light. But at the festival, they had put this ritual right after like the massive cacao ceremony the night before, and all of the like pleasure rituals and dropping in the body. And I had thought, oh dear, everyone is like not slept because they were wrapped in each other all night, and they're all like dreamy. No one is gonna come. No one is gonna want to come. And like, I had to close the doors after 70 people like ran in, and there was like, stop, I don't have enough people to deal with this. So I feel like there is a hunger still, because how available are these spaces really? Like, how often is there a safe space where you can get into the security of like a large group and really just go for it with your body, not just with the blah blah blah, but actually with your body? So it's been good for me to have that experience of like, it's actually just as popular. Yeah.
Oh, I love this one. Yeah. Okay, so how is love and mystery connected for you?
Maybe they're the same word. I mean, like, my experience of love is very mysterious, maybe. Like, I tend to fall in love with people instantly before they've opened their mouths, before anything. And then my mind will kick up a fuss and be like, no, not them. What? No. This is a very bad idea, Joy. So, yeah, it's kind of a devotion to following something I don't understand. Which is the whole art of tempo. It's like, as much as we can in every given moment, following the impulses without needing it to make sense, basically, because it will make sense. What my experience has been overwhelmingly is that it does make sense a little while after. You know, it may be a few days, a few months, a couple years, but it does make sense eventually. But in the moment, it's like, what? Really? Why am I being pulled there to do this thing or that thing? And yeah, to me, love is very much a practice of that, of being in the unknown every minute, every second. And every time I think I've touched something solid and stable, it will dissolve within a minute as well and turn upside down. And yeah, it's kind of like like taking a shower every day. It's the hygiene of being healthy. Like, love just fucking with your brain once in a while and saying, if you thought you had understood stuff, let me just correct you gently or not so gently and take you that place you never thought you were going, you know, like, yeah, something about arriving always like a child in front of love. Like,
Oh, it feels really like you kind of understand how to make love to life, and how, in a way, life wants to be loved. And I'm not sure if it's important, or if it's correct or resonates, but like the things that came up were really like, in a way, like unlocking the mystery of life that doesn't want to be chained or doesn't want to be contained in any way, and wants to be expressed freely and be either created or destructed in every moment again, and kind of to devote to exactly that piece. Just when I'm listening to you, I feel in your voice and in the way how you take this wisdom and bring it into words. It really makes me like dissolving for myself and be like, oh yeah, this is actually the room that I need to kind of be in relationship with my life. And yeah, so it's a very beautiful invitation. This, in a way, it's very easy to listen to you, I guess, because this muscle of looking at everything as a mystery in every moment again, kind of something that starts to feel easy over time when you trained it a lot, or when you kind of have this urge, probably, of looking at this, at life in this way.
Yeah, I mean, when I was learning facilitation recently, one of my teachers said, so don't worry, life tends to serve you as big a facilitation challenge as you're able to take. So in the beginning, you will probably have like things that are quite in flow, and at some point when your game starts to up, the resistance starts to be more intense and the problems start to multiply. So like trust that there's some kind of force looking after your capacity. And I feel kind of that way with just this way of being, of like, okay, you've got it on this plane, but what about this plane? And recently I've been journeying a lot with shame and with feelings that I didn't want to acknowledge in myself, and how they all got stuck because I was too ashamed to look at them. And they were actually beneath my conscious, because I just didn't want to go there at all. And recently I've just been opening all these inside boxes and being like, oh, you need to come up to the surface and get some air and get some time from my attention. And that's been really difficult for me, because shame is not a feeling that has a lot of that I'm very connected to, I should say. And being like, oh wow, you need a lot of space right now. Okay. Making space with this like squirming, uncomfortable, like, yeah, there's always more waiting of the things that I cannot or don't want to leave in the mystery completely every day, and want to hold on to in a certain form, or yeah.
I can relate to that. Yeah. I just recently found a piece of guilt that is somehow still holding my system quite intensely, and yeah, I'm also excited to look at them and feel it, and there are waves of grief actually connected to those places that I somehow, that I still don't understand. I never thought that my womb would grieve so much, or my pelvis, and that guilt and grief are connected somehow. Yeah, so it's somehow very interesting for my Gemini mind to be like, oh my god, this is also what we can experience in a way. And I guess, yeah, I have this a bit different I'm going in probably a bit different than how I experience you, and it's more like, oh my god, what is this? And then I want to look at it from the whole perspective, and I want to understand it with my mind, and then I want to put it into my my boxes and name this thing, and connect it to everything, and have it more in a structure so that I understood it. And yeah, in a way, it's a different kind of poetic experience of understanding or like connecting to life. And in a way, I really love how, or I see it as something different in a way. Like I feel your energy and then mine, and then still like how it's different, but it weaves very nicely also together when we spend time together.
Such a Gemini way of interacting with the world, of being like, oh, hello, oh, I am this too. Oh, this is so exciting. Okay. And taking it in and being like, oh, and you, oh, I am this too. This is wonderful. Oh, I never thought that. No.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm. Mm. Is there something that feels very missing to the picture on what is temple culture for you, or what you feel is important for people to know about this experience or this world, maybe even? Oh, oh no.
I guess simply that temple culture, like all of life, will probably give you what you need and not what you want. And that whatever we bring into the temple is fine. You know, if it's a first contact with this and there's a lot of expectations and disappointment and contraction and whatever, like that's a sacred moment in the journey too. You know, and that none of us are further along that path than anyone else. Like, I think that would be the main one. Like, just that whatever you, that's kind of the point, is that whatever you bring into the space is going to be okay. And it may not get the driver's seat for everyone, but it's like, what I've noticed really over the years of work is that in the face of unwavering love, things just tend to open and crack and dissolve the defenses, the limiting beliefs, the this, the that, by themselves. If they feel safe enough, they just will. And so kind of trusting the cycle of like how long this naturally needs for this process to happen, and that these defenses are here for a reason. They kept us all alive until today and functioning and getting some needs met. And yeah, I think to go into it with a kind of real simplicity of it will get us what we need and not what we want. And that will sometimes be wonderful and sometimes terrible. And yeah, and to be very self-compassionate and compassionate to each other as we all get served that medicine over and over and over.
Yeah, I remember one time when I had this experience of how would I say it? Like, I am not treated nicely by the people who facilitated this temple, Babadiboo. And you were saying sometimes we like all have roles, and this was kind of the role that I needed to that it was kind of coming to me, not the one where I would be like, this is all wrong, but more like, the role that I didn't want to have in that moment, where I would kind of blame the people who would lead the temple. And yeah, I remember, like, in the moment when you said it, I was like, no, but you're not right. Also. But later on and also it comes up right now when you said that the temple is not always like the thing that gives us, not always the thing that we want, but what we kind of need. And also that nobody is more advanced than others, or something like that. It's more like this beauty that we kind of embody things within the dynamic of the moment, and we get to taste very different experiences, and they are all kind of making us wider, or in a way, yeah, let us kind of experience life in all kind of shapes somehow. And yeah, in a way also, like, this kind of experience of we are all in this like temple experience together, and there is a variety of experiences that we can make. And some people are doing the one super flowy, and everything like kind of feels like it works out perfectly for them, and the other one feels super stuck and feel like this is not what I wanted, this is not what I'm getting. and and that's kind of also just a role in the whole picture. And it also kind of, when we look at it from a different way, or also when I would look at it from a different way, it's also part of I'm still like part of the whole group. I'm just taking that role now somehow, and embodying a piece in the whole, yeah, in the whole picture somehow, and move stuff from that place. Maybe it just opens up, and then some years later it actually moved and completed itself, or it opens up and it moves within an hour, or however. But I really love this non-duality of going into that culture, and into that room, and allowing whatever arises to to just be, and to flow with it, or to do something with what is there, and not, I mean, not not how I want it to be, is also part of the flavor then of what I'm experiencing somehow. Yeah, I really liked it. You're a good teacher in that, in from my, yeah, from my experience as well.
Did you say I'm a good teacher in that?
Yeah, you're a good teacher in that.
I mean, there's also the obvious thing that the temple is all the time and everywhere, right? Like, we have this beautiful habit of, the people I know, a lot of us, when we close a temple, we will always say, the temple is closed, and the temple is always open. And it's that thing of broadening these moments when we come together and we remember maybe even more that we are spirits clothed in human flesh for a little bit, to play around with that, to feel it all, that it's happening all the time, obviously. And I remember this moment when I was learning how to organize trainings, and my mentor said to me, like, so the first email that these people receive from you when they come and they ask the inevitable, like, silly questions, like, you know, the title is like, it's a residential, and they go, where do we sleep? And you're like, it's a residential, you sleep on site. And all of the mind being a bit agitated and wanting reassurance and wanting control. And she said, so even the first email they receive from you, that is already the temple door is open. They are already in the temple with us. And, you know, this is not a new lesson exactly, but the way that it arrived, that moment was still fresh to me, of saying, like, when you make the Excel spreadsheets with all the little details that you need to know, that is also the temple. And there was a sense of delight in that, where for me it was easier to know that the temple is here when I'm physically there, because I'm a pretty physical creature, but that being like, oh, of course, already when I receive these very sweet childish questions, I'm already, you know, first of all, sending all my love to all these people, and the courage that it takes to inquire at all, the courage that it takes to open your Google search or talk to a friend and hear about this and come forward. So it's just taking this and then extending it to everything all the time. And I think of this meme I saw on the internet recently, that I think it was from I don't remember the source, an Indian sacred text. There was a list of how to be a human being, as if it was instructions, and one of them was, lessons will be repeated until they are learned. It's okay if you don't get it this time. Just sit tight, it's gonna come back for another little round. And the other one was, to be here, to be there is not gonna be better than to be here. Like, there will be, once you have learned a lesson, there will be more lessons to be learned, which will also be repeated until you've learned them. You know, there's a sense of, like, there is nowhere to arrive. There is just, like, continuing to be as present as we can, with all of the unexpected next tricks that life has waiting for us. Yeah.
Thank you for your being.
Mm.
Very, yeah, I first wanted to say thank you for your work, but it's not like you just are and then you put yourself into a space, or other people are putting you somewhere, and it just feels very nice how you flow and inspire and invite and give perspective. Thank you very much for this talk. And I'm very excited to kind of catch you a bit and then share you with the world.
Here is my gift to the world. This is my friend. They're wonderful. Have a little bit of that.
Take a coffee and enjoy joy.
I love you so much. Thank you for making space for this and giving it a bit of your time and attention and love.